Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Rocky Lalvani, who is the Chief Profitability Officer at Profit Comes First. Rocky, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. Excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, me too, because I'm excited to talk about this topic because profitability is important. It's not the only thing, but it's a big thing, and I think that business owners need to realize that. And I know we'll touch on this in the interview, but how many times do we hear people on Shark Tank or people in business that should know better that don't know their numbers, and they think that they had $1 million year, and that's wonderful, but they spent 1.4, and now that's not as wonderful. So I want to dive into profitability, but give us a little bit of your background and let me understand where you're coming from when you are approaching profitability.
So I'm actually an immigrant to the United States. I came here when I was a little kid with my parents. They were starting over again. So we were, of course, on the wrong side of the tracks. And very quickly, they kind of moved up the economic ladder. And they would get together with their friends and they would talk about living in America. They would talk about money and how they were doing things. And as a kid, we just kind of got stuck sitting in the room listening because that's kind of what you did. I didn't realize how much people don't get taught money and they don't understand money. And it always kind of befuddled me, like, why is this the case? And then I realized, even in my own situation, school didn't teach me money. I have a Bachelor of Science in Economics. We didn't learn how to build wealth. I have an MBA. They didn't teach me how to build wealth. And I realized that for a lot of people, money is a taboo subject. And on top of that, everyone's got a money mindset. So somewhere when you were a kid, you were told certain things like, money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford that. Rich people are evil. And if you start believing these things, well, what's going to happen to you? If you think rich people are evil and you start to get wealthy, the first thing you do is, to which subconsciously, is get rid of your money. Yeah. And so you've got to have the right money habits. And then at one point, this was shocking to me as well, I just assumed business owners understood the business of business and looked at their financials. Yeah. And when I learned that they weren't looking at their financials, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is absurd. And I'm like, this is my skill set. Like, I've been playing with spreadsheets for 40 plus years. If I look at a spreadsheet or a tax return, it tells me a story and it brings up a million questions. And by that, I help people. And so it's kind of like figuring out, hey, what are you good at in the world? And what does the world need? And when you can find that intersection, life really becomes fun.
Yeah, and I think that telling the story is a really important thing. And I know for me, and you'll agree with this, for me, there's people are just wired differently. So I know that when I did my MBA, the only B, I got all A's, and then the only B was in corporate finance analysis and I'm like, these numbers are just blurring. I just don't get it. I just don't understand that. So when you have someone like yourself that can get it and tell the story and help the business owner, well, guess what? Rather than Mr. or Ms. Business Owner buckling down and learning and trying, maybe the highest and best use of your time is doing really well in that area of your business and then bringing in the expert to, outsource it to help you, really laser focus on that one area. And it might be data entry. It might be, bookkeeping. It might be the overall books, like from a virtual CFO. So I really agree with that statement. When you start working with a client, what are some of the low-hanging fruit, typical things you see that right off the bat you can help point out and make some good differences for them?
Usually what I will do right off the bat is go look at their financials, and I will see where they're spending money currently and how they're spending it. And then we start to challenge everything that they're spending on. So it's why are we doing XYZ and how can we start to cut costs? The other thing we look for is where is your profitability coming from? And most business owners don't realize they might have 5 products or 5 services. One of those services or products may be providing the majority of their profit. But if you don't know that and you don't have clarity on that, you can't then focus your attention on where your profits are coming from. And for a lot of people, they don't even know all the costs involved, and so maybe they're mispricing their offerings. And so that's a big thing, is if you can appropriately price your offerings to get the right revenue to be profitable. We all overspend, but that's the bottom line.
Yeah. It really, and to me, it seems so easy to go, well, all you need to do is, look at what's your top line revenue and what's your bottom line expense, and there's your profit. And if there's not a profit, let's fix it. You either need to raise expense, lower expense, or raise income or revenue. Well, it's not that easy, right? It really isn't. And in fact, I absolutely love watching the Shark Tanks and the Profit with Marcus Lemonis. And I remember he's really tight on that, right? Do you watch the Profit?
We don't have TV. We don't have cable service, so I can't watch it. I really want to watch it, but
there's this little thing called the internet.
Figure out how to get it.
And you can go online and you can watch all kinds of shows.
That one is behind a paywall.
Is it? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. I would just assume that CNBC would.
No, it's behind a paywall. As far as I could tell, it was behind a paywall, and what I should do is just pay for it. I
would say it really, I don't know how much that they would charge for accessing the shows, but it's a wonderful education. But the point is, I remember one of his episodes, and he was working with this florist, and the florist was the classic example of what you and I just mentioned, like, oh, we're making X and we're doing great, but in reality they were literally losing money, and they're like, I don't know why. And he goes, okay, let's look at this floral arrangement right here. You built it for me, you put it together, so I'm going to deconstruct it, and I'm going to grab each element of this arrangement that you say, let's just pick the number $80, that you sell for $80. So this one piece right here, how much is this? And the guy knew his number. She's like, oh, that's 22 cents. Okay, how about the baby's breath? Oh, that's for whatever he knew it. Boom, 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 boom. And and the TV screen was keeping a tab, and Marcus was like, okay, yep. And he got to the end, and the floral display or the floral arrangement was, I don't remember the numbers exactly, but it was like $85. And he's like, okay, hold up. You're charging $80. It costs you $85. Do you see what I'm talking about? And it was like the light bulb went off, and he's like, wow. And then that's not even talking about the hard cost of, taxes and, rents and all of those things. But where do you think that business owners are getting it wrong in their calculations? Because if you were to ask a business owner, they go, oh, yeah, we calculate it, but maybe they're using the wrong equation for their profitability, right?
And that's true. So that's a mindset shift, that shift in the equation. So currently what happens is there's something called GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles. And that's what they teach in college, right? This is what they teach the accountants. The equation for profit is sales minus expenses equals profit. So where is profit? It's the leftover. It's the end of the equation. It's the result. And we look at that and go, well, wait a minute. We're supposed to be profitable, but yet we're treating profit like a leftover. Let's change the equation to sales minus profit equals expenses. Now, mathematically, it's the same. But the shift of saying, I'm going to take my profit first, and I'm now going to cut my expenses, and in addition, it's telling me how much my expenses can be. So it's putting a constraint on us, and it's holding us accountable to that. And that little shift dramatically changes the way that you look at your business. So in that case, the flower shop owner's got to say, okay, I'm selling this for $80, I'm going to have a 10% profit margin. So now I have $72 left. I have to deliver this for $72.
Yeah. That's really interesting. You bring up mindset shift and looking at it from the other, it's like a contrarian view. Let's look at it backwards from the other way. And I've in marketing, I'll use this example that, models exactly what you just said. You ever heard of the response rates for like direct mail as an example? Like when you do a direct mail campaign, you should expect 1 to 2% response rate. And what if someone does this direct mail campaign and gets 5%? Oh my word, they got 200%, increase over the national norms. Wow, that's amazing. Hold up. You had a 5% response rate, which means it's a 95% fail rate. We need to look at it from the real, come on. So to your example there, don't look at, this minus this equals. Let's start with here's your price. What profit do you want? And then what do you have left to work with? And now that is in essence paying you first. You're going, okay, here's our revenues. Okay, we got to pay me some salary. What else can we do with it? Or here's our profit. How do we arrive at that? And maybe you find that you can't use as many premium, supplies or premium ingredients in that product. Or maybe you go, you know what? Maybe we can look and do a competitive analysis and see that $80 full arrangement really is underpriced because everyone else is charged at $95. I can scoop mine up a couple, $3 to tie that in. So I really like that approach that you're bringing up. When you work with businesses and you run them through that, do you ever feel they give you some pushback?
Usually not. By the time they come to me, they realize that what they're doing isn't working, and they want somebody to give them this information so that they can make better decisions. Or sometimes you come to the realization, hey, wait a minute, this business isn't going to ever be profitable. I need to rethink what I'm doing and how I'm doing it to bring more value. That happens a lot in e-commerce. People in the e-commerce world think, hey, I bought this for $5. I'm going to sell it on Amazon for $10. And the first thing I tell people is you're going to go broke because when you sell that on Amazon, Amazon's probably going to take 30% off the top. Now your $10 became $7. Oh, you got to ship it? That was $3. So now you're minus $1 every time you sell something on Amazon.
And then we've not even factored your time to prep. And see, that's another thing that people don't realize. The numbers work, yay. But now let's talk about the time it takes you to prep that piece for Amazon or that box or whatever. And I've done enough on FBA in years past to go, okay, you got to log in, you got to create the product, the SKU, you got to print off label, you got to put in the box, you got to weigh it, you got to tape it, you got to do all this stuff. And now all of a sudden, the numbers work for the hard cost. But now, is it worth your time? You might be getting paid less than minimum wage. Is that what you're wanting to work toward? And I think that becomes the next stage of assessment, right?
Very true. And that's the biggest thing people don't do is run the numbers to make sure that the business is appropriately running and that it makes sense. And you forget, if you're going to put something up on Amazon, you got to write good copy. So it's not 1 minute of just posting something. You have to come up with a good marketing message there. And
well, we could go down that road really far because it's the marketing message, it's the picture, it's the niche that you're in. Are you really picking a good all of that, and it's really, really goes way past the number. So many things goes into that profitability. So I want to go to something else that I know that you teach and you believe, which is, hey, it takes money to make money. You got to spend money to make money. Well, that's an age-old adage that may or may not have the best implications today. What is your take on that?
And that's true. And especially with marketing, the marketing guys all come to you and say, hey, you got to spend money to make money. And, hey, I've got this machine, and you put $1 in my machine, and I'll keep giving you $1.50 in sales. That's a great deal, right? You definitely want to keep putting $1 in this machine that keeps handing you $1.50 back. And I'm like, wait a minute. If your business is 10% profitable and you get $1.50, then it actually costs you $1.40 to deliver that product. and now you're giving the marketing guy $1, you're losing money. And nobody thinks that way. I think you really have to say, we have a phrase which is, you don't need more resources, you need to be more resourceful. So this comes back to Parkinson's law, which is, if I come to you, and this works for time and money. So you said you teach students, right? So you give students a project. You say, hey, you've got 3 weeks to do the project. It will take them 3 weeks. But if you give students a project and you say it's due tomorrow, they figure out a way to do it tomorrow. In business, the first thing the salespeople say to you is, what's your budget? Whatever you tell them, that's what they're going to spend. So if you constrain yourself and use less resources, most business owners are pretty resourceful. They're pretty creative. They will find a way to do it for less. But you've got to constrain yourself. Too often businesses are like, oh, I got to spend money to make money, and they don't think twice about it.
Is Parkinson's law also, it's ringing in the back of my mind that it also has application to time management, where it's the amount of time it takes to complete this task will constrict or expand based on the time that you have allotted to complete it. So if you have 1 hour, you could do this task and you get it done in an hour. But if you were told you must get it done in 30 minutes, okay, you can. Correct.
And so there's another book called The 12-Week Year.
Yeah.
And the 12-week year is based on that same principle. Both the Profit First book and the 12-week year book are both based on the same principle, which is Parkinson's law. We use up all our resources. And so we've got to constrain our resources. And in doing so, we will find a better way to do it that's faster, cheaper, and easier.
Well, Rocky, I really appreciate you coming on. For anyone listening that might be interested in seeing where they can be more resourceful and where they can maybe increase their profitability, where's the best way that they can reach out and connect with you?
So my podcast is Profit Answer Man. You can find me there. The website is profitcomesfirst.com. And from the website, there's a whole bunch of resources available to you and links to the podcast and to me as well.
Excellent. Well, Rocky, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. It was a pleasure to be here.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.